I've won. I finally managed to find some spare time to put some clips together, so we should hopefully have a good run between now and Christmas. Now, we've still got the Infinity War ones to finish off, so you should see the level how to jump start a star. We also have the Wakanda big fight battle, and I've got a few other levels that we've got coming. But obviously I wanted to come back after a long pause and hit you with something quite good, so the Star Wars trailer was the one that I picked. And what I'm going to do today is not give you a normal tutorial. I'm just going to give you an overview of how I put this clip together, because what I thought here is that although we use Disney Infinity to play games, you could, if you edit it right, you could create your own story, your own animation, your own adventure, and do your own voiceovers. So I'm just going to show you different techniques I've used to put this thing together. Now, obviously, you'll see the trailer play in the background, and without Mark Hamill and John Williams, it doesn't have the same effect. But I'll go through how I got these different camera shots, and I'll also show you how I got this lovely little shot here, the lightsaber jump, which actually didn't take as long to capture as you would think, but we'll show you that in a moment. So what I did is I created this flat landscape, put the Tatooine ground on, and I used the cars background. I didn't realise at the time, should have used the Lone Ranger one, but I did use that for another clip later on. And because we're doing it like a film set, we don't have to be tidy with all our little working outs, because it depends on what the camera can see. So you'll see here I have some various logics and some paths already set up. Okay, so this is my film set. And what we've got to do here is we actually have to play around with the camera. Now the camera is going to be facing us, looking in the opposite direction, so you'll see I'm going to be looking from behind us. So what I've got here, you'll see all the logic I've got out of the way. So I'll just show you here. Now the trickiest scene out of the whole clip was actually the opening scene where you have Rey breathing and the camera goes in close and then zooms down. And I was trying to work how do I get that to do, because you can't actually do that with a camera. The cameras aren't physical things like they are in the film sets. So you'll see here when I press this button here, I set a timer going off, and then that timer gives me 10 seconds. Now you'll notice here in this version I put the nice little dust sound, which is what I should have done, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't redo it again. It just took me so long. I just gave up on it. So I didn't bother. I was trying to be a perfectionist, so I gave up. But what basically happens after 10 seconds, you'll notice that I actually pull her along, and then I raise her up. The camera doesn't move at all, but the character does. But what you'll notice here is it's roughly around about 15 seconds, roughly 15 to 20 seconds. But what happens is the characters Disney Infinity, if they don't do anything for so long, they do their own animation to move. So you'll see here I have these little bricks that are picked up on the screen. So let me just reset these at the moment. Right, I'll just zoom out at the moment with my tool. Right, I've got this little box here that I did as a reset so I could practice the shot. So what I have is I have a path tool which switched off, yeah, and this path here goes along here, and if I click onto the path, you'll see it's a very long path and it goes very slowly down because I didn't want it to be a sharp gradual, so it just slides across and slowly disappears underneath the ground, so therefore my character stops moving. Okay, so the path comes across and slides out the way. Then a few seconds later, another path directly below it, another brick, if I can zoom in on it, let me try and catch onto it. So another path underneath the ground then comes up and picks me up and then raises me up so long on the screen. So what I had to do was I had created these trigger buttons. And when you find that trigger button, one resets it also and one starts it off. Now the first one doesn't do anything for 10 seconds, gives me time to get myself action. So when you press that first button, I turn on the face forward camera and I set this timer off that says, right, give me 10 seconds, right? And if you look at the properties, it allows me to adjust my position, line it all up that I can get the right view that I've got. Now, when that 10 seconds is over, it will start the next timer, okay? And the next timer says, right, can you now turn on the path, which will trigger this option. And that path will then reset and they'll start moving the bricks towards me. So that path will start now moving across along the path. And as it dips out the way, my person stops. Okay, and it stops there on the screen. And then a few seconds later, after the third timer stops, so that will do that one, when the third one stops, it will then start the other path, which will then raise up this tool, which brings it up. Now I didn't want it to carry on going, so I've only got 2 seconds. So 2 seconds later, I then tell it to switch the path off, which gives me that pause effect. Yeah, that was just for the opening shot scene. Alright, that was probably the most complicated scenario I tried to get. Now, it looks quite simple when you do it, and you see I've done a couple of test examples, but it was the way I got the two to work. and these little cameras I use, so the camera's going to be facing forward towards me when I do it. Now, another problem I came across is that if you don't move a Disney Infinity character, they start to do their own jig and jump. Yeah, so trying to get the exact time for it to fall through and go through just took so long. So you'll see here I have a rough position, press the camera, that starts the first timer. Timer kicks in, I get myself into position, and you notice now it would have been so much better. If you watch the trailer, it was so much better if I had dust at the beginning of it. Now you'll see it fires across, it now moves across. She's still standing still. She now stops in a moment. Oh God, I probably stood a little bit too close. And now she is raised up as the other platform comes up, and it stops. And then after a few seconds, yeah, she then jumps in and does a little move. And you couldn't believe it when I tested this. Look at that. Occasionally she ran for 20 seconds without doing the annoying move. And that was my opening shot, which took an awful lot to try and work out. That took me about, I would say, probably on and off while I played her in the evenings, a couple of weeks to get that in my head. So at this point I thought the trailer's not happening. Okay, but what I then did, and you'll see here when I go to my toy boxes, I then created different sets. So you'll notice here that these are all the different saves that I've done. All the different scenes from my clip, I create different stage sets of different actions, so I could just focus on that one element. I'll come back to it and look at it again. Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load some other ones up, so you'll see the Death Star ones. I'm going to load some other little trailers up and talk you through how I've done that, and then I'll show you the program that I've used. But everything I did this on happened to be on a PS4. Yeah, so I loaded this all up on a PS4, and then I edited it and joined it together using a PS4, which is quite handy. So let me show you the next stage, and I did some other little camera acts as well. Right, so this scene is where we want to see the spaceship coming towards us. So it's in the distance, and we have a close-up from Rey from behind. So what we've got here is we've got some cameras. Now we've had the front-facing camera, and now I've got the rear-facing camera. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch it from behind on the screen. So you'll see here I've got two buttons. I've got a reset button as well. But when I press that button, you'll see there's a connection to the camera which switches the one facing upwards. Yeah, that button I use to do my reset switch to switch everything off. But when you press this button here, you'll notice over here I've got some paths, and these paths are left constantly on. You'll see just move across and then they go up. And you'll see here I've added some locators to these paths, just going across, slightly staggered across. Alright, and if you look at these locators, I'll just point to it, you'll see this locator here is linked to something. As you'll notice that I have some effects generators, and those effects generators, each one of these are linked to those points. So when you press this button, it activates the camera comes on and faces that direction. It then sends signals in and says, right, just to delay the effect, so give me like a couple of delays so the smoke's not all going at the same time, can we trigger off the event? So it'll say, right, make play continuously loop the smoking effect, and they do them at different stages, so they stagger them across. Yeah, so I have that effect on there on the screen using these logic gates, and again, like the path, it's done on different timers. So now that I've pressed that option, what you've got here is this button does the opposite. When I'm in between breaks, I press that and it stops all looping effects. Just switch the whole thing off so it stops them there on the screen. Okay, so then we're going to do a bit of film cheating. I couldn't get the camera at the right height. It's either too low or it was too high. It wouldn't be exact. So I cheat. Right, and you'll see very film props. If you ever watched the making of Lord of the Rings, they're sat not on a horse but on a can on top of a car. Oh, this is a cool little thing as well. You can't get a spaceship to stay floating in the air. It won't allow you to do it. So what I also did is I put a little platform and just rest the car on there. So you can see it just rested on the top there. Now the beauty thing is, when you're far away, you don't actually notice the spaceship takes preference, and it's the same colour as the background. Now that you know that the platform's there, by the way, you're going to be able to see it all the time. But until then, you don't realise it, but it's actually there on the ridge. You can't suspend a spaceship in there, it'll just fall. So if you'll see here, I've got these little stepping stones, and this is to trick the camera work. So if I turn the camera on, let's shoot it on, right? And all it does is turn the camera on the screen. So all I've got to do now is position myself and try and get myself. So finally I'm not in the right position, so let's get closer to the ramp first, and then shoot it again. Right, now we've got the spec. So now what I can do is I'll start walking up the ramp so I get her waist at the perfect height. which is brilliant. But now you can't see the spaceship because the flipping hand's in the way. So it's one of this like editing part, but it's once you've got the layout right, I've just got to position it. I've got a little smoke coming across. Yeah, so you can position it here. So again, trying to cheat and get it so you can see the spaceship at the same time. So again, it's just lining it up because you can't see it. I don't want to touch the camera work. You've just got to get it right and perfect. Now you can't see it, but the spaceship's there in the distance. That's now the perfect height, and that gives you that effect. And I only need that effect for a few seconds. So that entire setup is purely for a 2-second shot. But if it charged together, it works quite well. Right, I'll show you now how I did the spaceship and how I get that loop coming round through on the spaceship. Okay. Right, so this is the set for the twisting camera shot. Now, what we're going to show you is a couple of things here. There's a lot of different factors involved with this clip. So this was the second one I did, and once I got this working, I knew I could then do the clip together. You'll see here I have two paths. Okay, both paths are switched off. The top path is for the spaceship, and the bottom path is for all those locators. Okay, and I've linked all those locators to that particular path. Yeah, and all I've done is I've adjusted their height and width on the path tool, so they're staggered like a star, because I realised one set of smoke wasn't enough. I needed loads. Okay, so each one of these little things are linked to an effects generator. Okay, so they're all switched off. Yeah. What we're going to do here basically is when we connect these on this path, they will all trigger these ships. So when we hit a certain point along the path, these things are all going to fly along at the same time, creating the smoke effect. And like I pointed out, these are all linked to this effects generator over here. Let's get all the way across over here. Where is it? There we go. Hidden outside is our little effects generator, and that will play smoke. When I tell it to play smoke, it will smoke. But by that stage, I will switch on the path, and they will all start to move across. So you'll see here they're set to a path tool on all those various locators. So the same one effects generator is to multiple locators, so they're all going to chuck out a load of smoke. Right, so what we're going to have is my spaceship's going to fly along here when I trigger the spaceship. But the first things first, that's not what we're looking at. The first thing we're looking at is this path tool, the camera spinning down at an angle. And I wanted to make sure the camera was correct. And the trick I had here was, how do I get the camera path to be the exact system to keep it smooth? So I did one of my little cheats. Now you'll see these on my other clips, but I used the building blocks. And I'll pick the 3 width here. So you'll see here, I've got this little point here. We'll just move this up. And you'll notice it fits exactly 3 points in. So if you'll see, I'll put that in there. There's my camera point, and there's my 3 points along there. And what I was then doing is I was putting these points in, and I'll twist the camera around, and I basically did a rough idea that it would always keep the 2 sections roughly 3 parts, and that would give you as a smooth the image as possible. Didn't have to be exact, but I want it to come down, twist around, and then join the rest of the camera. Now obviously the one piece that where it had to be is that where the camera's focused, it had to be on top of the path going across. Yeah, and then it will just follow down. So you'll see the path will come down here and it will move all the way across. Now ignore that camera, that was for facing action and I didn't actually use it, so you can ignore that altogether. But they will then come along here. My camera is going to be on the outside path, so it will be by the side of it, and as it comes around there, it's going to trigger those items off. So what I did here is I switched these 2 paths off, by the way. So these 2 paths are switched off. I then attached the camera to the path, right? And I've gone to the properties of that, and I tell the properties of that path there, can you be linked to a locator? So if you'll see here, you'll see there's a blue bar shooting off because the locator's somewhere on that set. So somewhere along here, I have a locator somewhere hidden, which I can't see somewhere. It's hard, but there's a locator here where that camera points to. Now you'll notice I haven't moved any of these props down here. You don't need them because you don't actually get to see them, but there's a locator somewhere hidden along here which that camera is linked to. So one thing I need to do is I need to reset the path so that locator moves back up to the top. I can't see at the moment, it's somewhere on the screen, but we'll come back to that later. So let's go back up to the camera setting. Okay, so that is going to set the camera off, and that's going to then look at, so that camera there is going to be focused. If you look here, if you go to the property of that camera, I've got it linked to the connected locator. Yeah, so it's pointing that locator, which is great, and I've then linked it to the path, which is brilliant on the screen. So then what I did is I just did those two and spanned them down. But what happens is, because the camera's pointing to the one inside, the inside part, they're both traveling the same speed. Because it's inside, it's going to travel a shorter distance. So what happens is the camera, the focus doesn't stay side on. Yeah. So what you can do here is, you'll notice I've created the points, several points down the side. Now what I did here is, because I wanted to make sure they stayed side by side, I slowed these points down. So you'll notice here on the properties, I changed the speed to 80%. So now the inside lane starts to slow up. Now I did it at 80, but I kept it 80. So you'll notice keep going round at the next point, and you need several points in here to slow it down. So between it, you'll notice property of that one, can I have that 80? So the inside lane slows up, which will hopefully, because the outside camera's going faster, gives you that impression that they then hopefully by the time they get down to here, they're on the same side. Right, that's when we get to 100 speed. Okay. So this comes down here, look at the property of that. That's now still 80, so we're still slightly slowing up. So now I can speed back up. So the next point here is this one. You'll now notice I changed the property setting back to 100%. So they're now going full speed, and they should hopefully be at the same time. Now, I didn't just come up with 80, by the way. I reran it again and again and again to get it down to 79, 75. 80 seemed to be bang on correct, which was quite handy. Now, what I then do here is that obviously at certain points down here, when I get the camera down side on, I need to activate the spaceship to come flying down the screen. Yeah. So I looked at the point, where do I trigger these? Am I going to get them to trigger with the actual pointer? And I thought, well, actually, what should be triggered is the camera. Right. And remember, this little camera is right here. So what you'll notice here at this particular point, as I come down, we've now activated the route. Yeah. So what this does here, this triggers a logic gate. And actually, when it comes down here, when that camera comes down here, it closes a logic gate. And that closure is quite good, because you can't just have a spaceship flying around. I needed my character to be in that spaceship. Now, I thought you might see the character driving it, but you don't actually see it until you're doing head on. But I needed the person to be inside the spaceship. And to do that, you've got to send them through. So you'll notice here, I have a logic gate here. And when that logic gate is closed, it will then jump my spaceship onto another path. So the question is, where the flipping hell is my spaceship? Well, actually, my spaceship is hidden off screen. So if you look over here, you'll see there's a little path tool pointing to the middle of nowhere. So let's go across, and you'll see just in the faint distance some squares. Right. Now those squares are so to help me to find them, by the way, because you wouldn't have seen them otherwise. There you go. You'll see here I have a little circle. And basically the user is in that spaceship is going round in a constant loop. Keep going round until I want it. So it's spinning round, spinning round, spinning round. When it gets to this point here, if the gate is closed, it will then trigger the person to jump on and start the other line. So the spaceship then jumps from here onto the person with the character involved. So that took a lot of work to do. So that will trigger that logic gate, right? Which then comes all the way over here. It then jumps from that path to this path, and then the spaceship now flies through and catches up with my side running camera. It gave me a headache, I can tell you, trying to get the timing right, because I thought, and then when at the end of it, by the way, you don't even see that the person's on it, which is annoying, but as the ship comes across, it goes across. Now the path of the spaceship is running faster than the camera, otherwise it won't overtake. Yeah. Now what I then did here is how do I get the spaceship out the way? How do I do it? Right. So what I then did is I linked that camera to that spaceship, to the path. So if you look here, you'll notice that's linked to the path. And it's not this one, it's the one hidden out the way. So what I do is I'll fly that, and I'll use the trigger areas, and I have those two trigger areas over in the corner, which will allow me then when I fly into it to use it as like a switch. And that says, right, now switch the paths on, which will connect that one to the loop over here. So this is where I use these trigger areas so I can say, right, when I'm ready, I will fly my spaceship in here with my character attached. This is the cool thing. If your character's attached and you tell it to jump to a path, the character will stay on that path as well. They won't drop the player, which I thought brilliant. As the ship goes through here, it does a couple of resets, so it resets all the paths so they're all linked up working correctly. So I could reset it and run it again and reset all my buttons. Yeah, so I'll create this grid. So let's show you this working. And when you watch back the trailer, by the way, you'll notice this. Now I'll point it out. So as you'll come across, let's get the spaceship. Now the spaceship obviously is linked to the path, but the path is switched off. So therefore the spaceship just drops limp and doesn't do anything. So we'll just do this. Come on. Number of times I had to go and find the spaceship. Now I had practiced different variations with this, trying to get this to work. So I'll fly the spaceship along. Right, turn it round. Now as I fly through here, it's going to trigger off the options. As it goes across, here it goes. And now look in the corner there, you can see the spaceship is spinning round. It activates my camera, which you now can't see the spaceship, but look at the map. You'll see the little map in the right hand corner. It's spinning around like a yo-yo. You can see it spinning around, the little arrow. It comes round. Now as it levels out, it will trigger that. You'll notice that thing will stop spinning, which now asks the ship to come across and now flies through. Now all I had to hope was that time was the right speed for the spaceship to come across in the video clip, which by chance it was, which came quite handy. And that spaceship now is fixed on a loop, so you'll notice here that as it gets to the end it will come through and it will flick through again. That's it, and that's my ship, and that's how it flies through on this path to give the smoke screen. And it worked quite well. But obviously before you test that you have to keep saved it, because if you saved it with the spaceship on the current path, it forgets the other path that it's done and you lose all that logic. So before you do any of these tests, save it. Once you've saved it, give it a test run, and then you've got the loop coming through. And that was how I got the scene. And now all that, by the way, is for about, that's the longest part. I think it's about 6 seconds. And like I say, with the right sound effect, like with Mark Hamill talking and coming through it, it's so much cooler on that part of the screen. And you've got the running job. Right, let me show you another part I did and see how I will put together. So what I've done now is I've stripped out the camera sliding down, and all I need to focus on in this clip is the spaceship flying side to side. So you'll see the ship flying across each time. So what I realised is I could be a bit more proactive with my join. So what you'll notice here is the spaceship starts first on this joint. Okay, it's on a constant loop. When it gets to this point, it resets the path. When it gets to the second one, it turns it on. And when it gets past the path, it then switches it on and creates the gas effect, so that it will automatically restart them again. So that it's on a constant loop, and that ship is now flying through this channel, right? So all I need to do now is to get the camera view of me coming across on the screen. So what I've done here is, you'll notice I have two paths, a camera and another thing. And when I go through this trigger area, it starts that camera. Now that camera is pointing to that little path, so it's at an angle. I wanted it at a 45-degree angle, so as they move down, the camera's now sideways, and I can have that shot of Rey running just at the right angle for the grid. So when I walk into that area, it triggers off that zone. So you'll see as I walk in, the camera kicks in, and there I am. I move the camera around and adjust it so you can see me, and now the ship's coming, and I can run up close, and it gives me that angle of her chasing towards me. And then I realised, when I was doing this, by the way, that Rey doesn't have a flipping lightsaber. I was like, no. So you have to put on the special pack for Rey. You have to switch on a backpack, right? And I know you guys are quite particular, and you'll see it. So then I thought, I'm going to have to do shots with her to have a backpack on. Otherwise, the continuity won't look right. So when you put the backpack on, so I had to redo certain scenes with her back, so we got the backpack on. You'll notice a couple slip through, but we have to do it on the screen. Right. So all I've got to do is then just time it right. Now on the PlayStation, I don't have an Xbox. There's no preference between Xbox or PS4. But on the PlayStation, you can just do the share button with captures. Now you can change that to capture the last 60 minutes or whatever. And each time you press a share, it captures the screen. So all I do is when I get the angle right, see what's happening. And you've got to just time it right now. It's coming, and let's start to run, which will then kick in the camera. Where they go. Oops, I missed it that time. I missed it too late. And this is the funny thing was, out of all the things that I did, I had to get the lightsaber jump just right. It was like, I'm never going to get this flipping thing to work, right? And it actually didn't take that bad too long. So this shot was to get the running scene, so I'll make sure it's right. Get it running. Oops, the camera's started in the wrong place. So that tends to be the tricky, but the actual jump, I think I did it in 3 jumps. And the funny thing was, though, I was on my own doing this late in the night. So when I did the jump, it was like up in the air, yeah, like I'd scored a goal or won the Super Bowl or whatever. I just absolutely couldn't believe I got it within a few goes. But It's because I spent so long trying to get everything else right that I knew the path I was going across. Right, so let's see this go through. So we'll set her up now in this clip. So this is me showing you how it works. And we run across, here he comes, aim it right, there we go, and we're running. And then you get that shot there on the screen. And that shows you how quickly you can do it. So that was done on that shot. So I had the camera view, and then I thought, well, hold on, how do I get a better zoom in option? And then I started to use just the camera with the Disney Infinity camera. So you'll notice here, I thought, well, hold on, I'll just use her. I won't use the effect. I won't have that effect going across. I'm just going to do it with her on her own. And again, each time I want the scene, just quickly share it, capture the screen, and then I can edit it. And I was looking at my various clips, but there was a lot of video that I had to go through and cut out and change. But you'll see here, I'll do it again. So on my last jump, I'll just show you, I got it down to a quite art. Now, if you watched any of my other clips, you'll notice that my shooting and aiming skills aren't the best. So that's why a few of you thought it took me a long time to do. But while I was trying to do this, I said, hold on, I've got this bit where she runs towards the camera, so that was a tricky bit, right? That was another shot I could do. So this one level got me just about 3 different shots all at the same time. So now I'm going to twist my own camera at a slight angle. Let's see if I can do it again. Now this is the normal speed, and it doesn't look that effective, right? So let's just do normal speed, and that's it. That's it done. All I then have to do is just play it in slow-mo, my editing tool, and it has a much more better effect than I've done. And once I got that effect, I'd realised I'd cracked it, and I knew the clip was going to look really good. Now in this scene of the trailer, you see Kylo Ren on a red planet. Well, there is no red planet on the toy box that could use the right landscape. So what I did is, by using various trees taken from Nightmare Before Christmas, what I did is I used just the flat grey square panels, so you'll see them at the top, and there's a colour called red carpet, which gives me that red type of sky effect. So I thought, right, that's good. So I've set them all up, and then I thought what I'll do is I'll have this button, and when I trigger it, now you'll see here, you can't see it, but that is actually a camera there that's just, for some reason, it hasn't loaded up. But when you press it, I want it to activate that camera, and that camera is facing sideways. And I'm told it to stick on this time, stick with the trigger in person, so it's going to stick with Kylo Ren. At the same time, I've got a wave generator, and this wave generator is linked to various individual different locators. And I've tried to pick enemies that from the trailer look like rebels or stuff like that. So there's some Guardian Galaxy guards, I think, and I've used those. And I've left the delay to be about 5 seconds, so they don't come all the time. Because, by the way, I'm only trying to capture a couple of scenes. I don't need a long particular point here. So when I press this button, it triggers it off and brings the camera off, and it gives me that closer camera. Now I tried it with the aerial view and it didn't work. So I said, right, okay, let's do this again. So I put Kylo Ren on now, so I'll switch character to Kylo. If I press that button, the camera acts, so I now move forward. So now if I come up close, it now gives me that red planet type look, and if the branches are too close to the screen, it was right. And then all I did was I just played killing people. Now in the trailer, Kylo Ren's running to the right, so I had to try and do the same, and I had to try and get the action right. So I spent a few minutes just kicking and defeating enemies, trying to get the shot right, and try and get that. And all I did then was, like I did with the other one, slow it down to get him cutting his lightsaber. And again, it was for a second shot, so all this was for 1 or 2 seconds. But actually fit in quite well with the trailer, so I was quite pleased with that. So you don't have to do a game, but you just, again, you're trying to get that scene, and I was just trying to match that from the clip. And that was roughly it. You can see here, just trying to get that camera angle right. So if I use it out of camera, it didn't give me the right perspective. That's why I had to use the sideways camera. So let's just press that back again. And if you press the triangle right, it looks quite cool from that angle. So all that scene was for a second. but when you string them together, it does make it worthwhile. Right, I'll show you one more last clip, and then I'll show you one of the levels we've got coming up as well. So once I'd got Kylo Ren and Rey's jumping the spaceship, the rest of it was relatively quite quick because the scenes are all only a couple of seconds to put together. So this last little clip I'm going to show you is just the land speeder one. So you see here I've got a trigger area and I've got a land speeder. Now this land speeder is connected to that path, but these paths are all turned off. And you'll notice I've got loads of points going along the path. So when I turn this path on, when I reach a certain point, it's going to reset the other two paths. And you'll notice I've got two other paths. One's for a locator and one is for the camera. The camera is pointed to the locator. So the camera is always going to be fixed at one particular point, and as the camera goes straight down, the camera is going to be looking at always where the locator is, and it should always be together. So the locator and the speeder will go from side to side with the camera being constantly straight. And you'll see here I've just got it moving nicely curved around the edges. Now you'll also see around there's these locators. And when the top camera reaches a particular point, so you reach that point, it triggers an effect generator. So it says when the camera on point reaches path, what it says here is, can you trigger one of my little hidden areas? And they point to a locator, which is to create a huge explosion. So on path, when point reaches on path, play once, and then you get the explosion in the huge explosion. So this was quite easy to put together, and you'll notice also this is where I used the Colby background, which is the Wild West one, which is the one I should have done the first one on, but it's the far better landscape, and you'll see it blending so much better. But hey, I've done it by that stage. I've done all the clips. I wasn't going back anymore, otherwise I've never got anything out this year. Right, so that's all I'm going to show you how I put the clip together. There are other scenes together which are similar things on path tools and stuff. What I will do though is I will show you just the tool that I use to actually then edit the video together. It's a fantastic tool and it comes free on the PS4. I don't know if Xbox have their own stuff or something similar, but I don't use any fancy software. It's all stuff that comes with the PS4. Which is quite handy. So you'll see here from my clip as it goes through, and I've left it on show, it triggers off the path as the camera's going straight and it pings it across. Now obviously I need the actor in the actual ship, so I had a couple of little reset buttons to do to change that on the screen. Now with most of my clips I've noticed that I get not majority, only mature people watch the entire clip, so I'm only going to mention this now because no one actually spotted anything. In my trailer is one of my up and coming levels that I'm going to show you hopefully before Christmas. So I'm going to show you that as the last thing on this clip. So the last clip is going to be what level am I going to show you. You know I'm doing the planet one. We'll see how to jumpstart a start, and then you know I'm doing the Wakanda level. But there's a couple of others I've been talking about in your comments. And just to be clear, I read every single comment, and cheers for your support. Cheers for my regulars that even a year you're still giving me those comments. I appreciate that a lot. So thank you. I've noticed there's some other people also doing this Infinity Channel thing, so great stuff there. Keep up the good work. Right, so you'll see here now, I'm just going to do one last thing. I'm just done like a reset button. I'm going to jump in the ship, which now the actor is on the stage. It's like getting the camera in. Now that I've got the actor on, I can fly across. And I've left this rock here just so I know where the trigger area is. So as I go into the trigger area, it switches the path on, which now fires that through. And now we've got the effect, and it goes side to side. And that's taken from the scene. So that's basically it. That's how I basically put all these little clips together. So I'll quickly show you now the tool that I've used, and then I'll show you what one of the levels you've got coming up before Christmas. Cheers for your support, guys. Cheers for the great words. It's been great. I really do appreciate it. So the tool I use to create all my videos is this piece of software called Share Factory that's free, and it comes pre-installed on your PS4. So everything I do on my channel is all been done on my PS4, so this is why you get my sound. But this tool's fantastic. You can import sound clips, you can mix them, you can play slow-mo, cut it all together. It's one of the best editing tools I've come across, and it's free. So I love this tool, so have a look out for that. I may do a clip later on this in a bit more detail how it works. Right, in the meantime, this is one of the levels I've got coming up before Christmas. I hope you enjoy it. It is dun dun dun, the solo level, the train track. So we'll look at that in a bit more detail. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for support. I'll get our clip very soon. Bye.